Welcome to this Stress Awareness Month Masterclass. So, welcome and lovely to have you all here, whether you're here watching live, which is fabulous, or if you're watching the replay as well. It's still so lovely to have your energy here with us. If you have any questions while I'm going along, please do feel free to pop them in the chat, or if I'm asking questions, please do interact. And even if you're watching the replay, do feel free to post below or whatever, because I'm very happy to come back and to respond to anything, even though it's after the live. That's fine. That's why I wanted to do it here in the group, so that the replay will be available and so that we can still interact. So as I say, great to have you here. And just also before I start, to say that I have a series of slides that I'm using just to keep me on track, because I do tend to just get quite passionate about all of this stuff. So I'll be posting the slides in the group afterwards as another just resource that you can refer back to. And there are some links later on which then will be live in the presentation on the slides. So I'll get started. Just let me click on that so that my presentation will move forward. So first of all, just to introduce myself and let you know who I am and why I'm here doing this masterclass, why I'm so passionate about this topic. So my name is Robin and my business is Equenergy Wild Wellbeing. And the Equenergy, it's a bit confusing, I know, but basically it's a fusion of equilibrium, balance, and energy, because when we can get our energies back into balance, then our bodies are such wise, intelligent systems. They know how to get themselves well. They're already pre-programmed. They've got that blueprint. All they need is the right environment. Like with a plant, they just need the right environment in order to be able to thrive and to get back to fuller, greater sense of well-being. And I'm passionate about this topic because I've been through burnout not once but twice. I'm a bit of a slow learner. And in that journey, I feel that I've learnt so much and grown so much. And I got to the point, probably in both of those times of burnout, where I felt utterly hopeless. And I just didn't see any potential for things to get better. I was in a very dark and very miserable place. And I'd got to the point of, well, if that would be different and that person would behave differently and this was different and my work was different and the environment was different and my home life was different, then everything would be okay. And so I felt that I was out of control because I couldn't change any of those things. I didn't have any sense of agency in making my life better. If I couldn't change those things, then I thought my life was never going to change. It was never going to be better. I felt hopeless. But in my journey, in my kind of refusal to give up and just determination, my first burnout particularly came because I'm rather a perfectionist, and I have come to realize that and come to understand why that wasn't supporting me. But at the same time, it does, there are pros and cons to all of these things, and it's honoring why we've come into that way of being, but what it could give us as a positive if we hadn't kind of gone into it in an extreme. But just to say that my perfectionism, I guess, was part of why I refused to give up. It was that determination, that gritted teeth and push on. But it did get me to learning why that wasn't serving me well, but how I could use it more effectively, more as a support, rather than at the time kind of beating myself, a stick to beat myself with. So having found my way from hopelessness to hopefulness, from being miserable to enjoying my life, Neil Donald Walsh, through reading his books, taught me that the word enjoy actually is in joy, that we get to bring joy into our own lives. Because so often we kind of put off our happiness. I'll be happy when. I'll be happy when this is different, that's different, this person is different. But if we can just enjoy where we are right now, being present in this moment, and you may have picked up on my wild Equenergy, wild well-being. The wild is an acronym of the 4 pillars that I work to, and that first one is wonder, which to me is another part of joy, gratitude, all these wonderful practices that really support us and help us to feel so much better in ourselves. And I know that they sound simple, but as a really good friend of mine says, never dismiss the little things, because they're not little, they are huge. We only need to make those small changes to feel incredibly different. I always used to think that my problems were big and complex and complicated and painful. So the change had to be big and complex and complicated and painful. But I've discovered that's not the case. It's making those tiny little adjustments bit by bit over time consistently. That's what helps to change things so radically. It's really incredible. So yes, I'm now very passionate about sharing that with people, because I hated being in that place of hopelessness. It's horrible, it's dark, it's painful, it's miserable. And now I hate to see other people feeling stuck in that situation. And I want to be able to show that it's possible to make these changes. They don't need to be painful, they don't need to be hard. It's just trusting, believing that you can do it, and it can be fun, and it is achievable, and you can make that big change that you don't think is possible maybe from where you are now. You can get there. So that's part of why I'm running this masterclass, and why I want to share these tools, tips and techniques that I'll be getting to, why I want to share them with you. So the aims and objectives for this session are to give you an insight into what's going on in your body when you're feeling stressed, to help you to understand that, because I think that so often we have all these sensations that are going on in our body and we're not sure where they're coming from and why, and it feels scary, and it's a lot of the fear, I think, is coming from the unknown. If we can understand more about our body, that it's supporting us, that it's there to guide us, that it just, all it's doing is sharing information. It doesn't have words. Its vocabulary is feelings, sensations. So when we can start to tune into that vocabulary, understand that vocabulary, translate and interpret that vocabulary, we'll know what the body's telling us. We can respond rather than react. We can address the issues it's highlighting, and then we start to feel better. And our body knows that we're listening, and it stops shouting and can really turn down the volume until we get to the point where we think, yeah, we're working together, we're working with our body now. Because I think so often in our society we work against it. We're told that pain is a bad thing, that it's the sign of something going wrong, it's the sign of the body attacking itself. That's not how I see it at all. I don't think our bodies attack themselves. They might just be turning up the volume, because we aren't taught how to listen, we aren't taught how to interpret and how to understand the messages that our bodies are sending us, by and large. So if the body feels it's not being heard, it's like the rest of us, we feel we're not being heard, we want to shout, we want to scream. That's all the body is doing. So when it starts to feel heard, when we start to work with it, when we are no longer in the position maybe where we are at odds with our body. I know that there have been times in my life when I've kind of hated bits about myself and bits about my body. But learning to celebrate it, I guess to enjoy it as much as anything else. And I saw a post once that said, movement is like a celebration of your body and what it can do, whatever that might be, whatever stage you're at, whatever age you're at. Movement is a celebration of the body and all the amazing things that it does for us, versus exercise, sometimes we use it as a punishment. I know that I was certainly there for a while. So how we can start to just be in awe and wonder of our body. So that's the name. Also, to help you develop that body vocabulary I was talking about, how can you begin to listen, tune in, understand, interpret, get that dialogue going with your body where you're starting to listen to each other, understand each other, support each other, work together, work with each other rather than against each other, which ends up when you're working against anything, you're pushing against it or you're pulling against it. It's exhausting. It takes so much energy and wastes so much time. So how can you start to be working in sync together? So developing that personal, individual vocabulary, that dialogue with your own body, and to know when and how to practice self-care in the most effective way. And to give you the tools, tips and techniques that you can take today and put into place and into action straight away. But I wanted to start off with some myths around self-care, and feel free to pop stuff in the messages in the chat about what are the things maybe you've heard around self-care, or that you've maybe think yourself around self-care. So some examples might be, it's fluffy. It maybe doesn't do all that much. Self-care, we often think about self-care in terms of the nice warm bath, the coming home, taking off your shoes, maybe if you wear high heels or something during the day, if you're dressing for an office as a woman, you get home at the end of the day and just take off those high heels, put your feet into some nice cozy warm fluffy slippers, the glass of wine on a Friday evening, the essential oils and the candles with your bath. And I'm not saying that any of those things aren't good. Of course they are, and they feel wonderful. But to me, they touch only the tip of the iceberg. They don't go very deep. So you might have your warm bath on a Friday evening with the essential oils and the candles and the glass of wine and think, oh, that's wonderful. I can have the rest of my weekend to rest and relax, hopefully, or some time to rest and relax anyway over the weekend. And then I'll be ready for Monday morning. Monday morning arrives, and if maybe you aren't enjoying work, if work isn't going well, you might have been starting to have those niggles on Sunday evening. I've got to go to work tomorrow. Then maybe not sleep well, wake up tired, not feeling refreshed, already stressed at the thought of going back in, and something happens. Somebody looks at you as you walk through the door, and it might be that the photocopier is broken down and they're frustrated, but you just get that look, and it only takes a look sometimes, doesn't it? And you're back in stress. And when we're in stress, we can be quite volatile and sensitive and touchy, like just one little press of my button and I'm gonna lose it. So I think our self-care needs to be so much more than just the warm bath, just those other things that I was mentioning. So that's one of the myths, that it's just those fluffy things. Also, that it just scratches the surface. But then there are the things like, it's expensive. Because if people are thinking around the massage, maybe you have a friend who has a weekly, monthly massage and you're thinking, I can't really afford that. Or you might read in a magazine or something that's recommended, massages, reflexology, all of these sorts of body works that really help you to relax, and they're wonderful. And my mum does reflexology, Indian head massage. It's so good. But if you're going to go on a regular basis, the prices, it can add up. And then as well with the fuel prices, if you're having to travel, so you can get why it would be so easy to say it's so expensive, I can't afford it. But I think we also have to think of it as an investment. Sorry, Andrew, just reading your comment. A friend of mine everything is cured with a bath. Not enough for me. Yeah, I totally get that. nice warm bath is great. I'm not saying not to do it. I'm just saying you could add so much more. Midge, you've learnt that self-care is so much more than bubble baths and manicures. Yes, so manicures, getting your nails done, it is great, and it can do so much for your self-esteem. And the massages and the foot massages, all of these things, they're great. I'm not saying they're not good. It's just how we can go a little bit deeper. So people can say it's too expensive, but it's an investment in yourself. So because sometimes we say it's too expensive, I can't afford to go every week, every month, but then we end up maybe not going ever. So that's just something to be conscious of. Some people can say it's too time consuming. But again, if we don't make time for our well-being, we end up having to make time for illness and dis-ease, because we get to that point of just not being able to find ease in our bodies, whether that's through stress and anxiety or physical issues, pains in our joints and discomfort of that sort. So people maybe are saying that they don't have the time, but again, it's an investment in ourselves. And I think also that we can get to having a certain routine and a certain set of practices in self-care that we can build in to everything that we do. So it's not just about the time that we set aside. Yes, I recommend that. I think that's really good to do as an investment in self. But I think self-care also can come in and really benefits. Hi Hazel, great to have you here. I think self-care can come in to everything that we do, because when we are being conscious, when we're listening to our body vocabulary, when we're working with and having that dialogue, the dialogue is an ongoing thing. It's not just I'll do it on a Sunday morning. It's an everyday thing. It's checking in with ourselves all of the time, not in a helicopter way or thinking that we really have to do it 24/7, but just every now and again, checking in, just listening. How are you doing? Can I do anything to support you? I'm here. We're doing okay. And I'll come on to that a little bit more about that shortly. But I also want to talk about exactly what's going on in the body when we're feeling stress, anxiety, overwhelm. Again, as I was saying at the beginning, because I think sometimes when those sensations are coming up in our bodies, then it can be scary. What's going on? And if it goes as far as a panic attacks can actually leave you feeling like you're having a heart attack. So that's an extreme, but even on the way to that, before you get to that stage, you can still be wondering, well, what's going on in my body? Why am I feeling the butterflies in my stomach? Why am I feeling the pounding of my heart, the dryness of my mouth, or whatever it might be? And actually also, I'd just like to ask you what you feel, what in your body lets you know stress is starting to build, I'm starting to feel a little bit anxious, because it can be quite an individual thing. We're all unique, and there will be commonalities. So we all have heard of the sweaty palms, the dry mouth, the beating heart, the butterflies in the stomach. You might have some of them, you might have all of them, you might have none of them. So what is it for you? How does your body tell you that you're starting to feel stressed? How does that manifest for you? And please just stick some comments in the chat there. For me, it's a range of things depending on what's going on, but I tend to hold my stress in my shoulders and neck and in my digestive system. So I used to get headaches and migraines and IBS and just general discomfort in my stomach, kind of an indigestion kind of a feeling. I also didn't sleep very well. If I'm stressed, if I've got stuff that's running around in my head, it keeps me awake. And I can't then get comfortable in bed either, physically comfortable. So I'm tossing and turning, trying to find a position that I think I can relax and just let go and go to sleep. Tinnitus, yes, absolutely. And that'll probably relate to tension being held in neck and jaw, if you tend to clench your jaw, because it affects the circulation in that area, which ear, nose, throat, you can begin to understand why that might impact on tinnitus, which is related to ear and balance and all of that thing, that's that area. Headache and exhaustion, yes, as I was saying, if you're in tension with yourself and you're pushing or pulling against yourself, it is exhausting. It's one of the ways people use to build muscle is press against themselves, because it's a great form of exercise. But if we're doing it constantly, whether that's on a physical level, an emotional level, it is really exhausting. So if I didn't sleep well, if I was stressed, I would then be irritable, forgetful. You know those silly things that you do when you're exhausted, your brain's not functioning on all four cylinders, like putting your mobile phone in the fridge and then thinking, where did I put it? Or wandering around the house with your glasses on the top of your head saying, where did I put those glasses? And everybody else is going, they're on your head. Yeah, exactly. Clenching your jaws is huge. A lot of people have TMJ, temporomandibular joint issues. So it can be grinding your teeth when you're asleep or when you're awake. It can cause problems with your teeth. It's quite a common area for stress. And that will relate also to how we interpret stress, what our belief systems are, and the theme, the way that we look at the world, our perspective. So am I feeling I want to bite things, I want to bite the world, I want to bite somebody who's upset me, or I'm hanging on by the skin of my teeth. So our bodies are quite metaphorical in that way. So just have a feel into what your clenching of teeth, what is that? What is your jaw holding onto for you? Also, if I'm stressed, I really need to be in control. I get to be a control freak, so the perfectionism again, I guess, coming in there. And I get fearful and anxious, and my inner critic goes ballistic. It'll tell me that I'm useless and that I'm no good, that nobody wants me, that I'm not enough, all of those things. So when I notice those things starting to happen, if I'm getting headachy, if I'm just getting tight and tense around my shoulders, my mum always used to say, what are your shoulders doing up around your ears? If I'm starting to feel a bit indigestion, a bit butterflies in my stomach, if I'm not sleeping well, if I'm irritable, forgetful, stress in your jaw and neck, yeah, and the irritability, completely get it, Yvonne. Or if I'm doing those silly little things and I'm catching myself like forgetting if I've locked the door, or wondering where I put something. I know I had it in my hand a minute ago. Or the thing that Terry Wogan used to talk about with Terry's old gents or old guys or whatever it was, that Terry's togs would talk about going to the top of the stairs and thinking, why did I come up here? I know I came up for a reason, but I can't remember what it is now. That sort of thing. Shoulders around ears, absolutely, Yvonne. Or if I get that need to control things, because it's basically showing me that I don't feel safe. I need to control things in order to feel safe. If I'm stressed and anxious, that's why I need to control things. So very much this isn't about beating ourselves up, about saying that's wrong behavior. It's about, there I go again, why am I always doing this? It's about having compassion for ourselves as well, and saying, am I not feeling safe in this moment? Am I not feeling safe to relax? Is that why my jaw's clenching, why my shoulders are up around my ears, why my stomach's uncomfortable, why I've got a headache, why I'm not sleeping well and therefore being irritable and forgetful, why, for me, I'm needing to control things, I'm feeling fearful and anxious, and my negative self-talk has just gone crazy and I can't seem to turn off that voice in my head. But what's really going on there is that we've gone into overwhelm. And overwhelm basically is where there are lots of demands coming in. I mean, we've got demands all the time. We've got demands at work, we've got demands at home. Hazel, you get headaches and anxious, negative thoughts. Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. So it's when you're getting that, your body's just saying to you, I'm stressed here. I need some support. And once we know that that's what's going on, then we can start to address it. We can start to put things into place to support ourselves. So, as I say, it's when demands are coming in and we don't feel in that moment, in that situation, that we have enough resources to look after ourselves, to ask for what we need in that situation. And it might be in a meeting where it's as simple as we can't ask for water. If there's no water available, we can't go out and get a glass of water. We can't maybe ask for the window to be opened. Very much depends on your work situation. I'm just thinking of some of the places that I've been in and that I've been working where that wasn't always possible. Trish saying that sometimes you don't feel you have enough time. Time is a huge pressure to do all the things that others seem to be able to do. Oh, comparisonitis. It's a huge one of the factors in overwhelm. Again, it's demands and expectations, I guess is another word for that, where we put expectations on ourselves because we feel they're put on us by others around us. And it's all those shoulds, have tos, musts, can'ts, don'ts, those sorts of things maybe that we have in our vocabulary, and to be aware of our verbal inner vocabulary. And I was very fortunate that my mum years and years ago said to me, wipe those from your vocabulary. Take those out of your dialogue. No more shoulds, have tos, can'ts. And if you just feel into the energy of those words when you say them or when you have them in your internal dialogue, how do they make you feel? How could you reframe them into something even better? And I'll talk a little bit about that later. Multitasking. And that was something that I was going to say as well. For me, that's exactly what triggers me. Feeling that I have to do things now and I don't have enough time. And again, that's a pressure that we've taken on from people, society around us, and again that put up those expectations and those shoulds and those have tos, and I've got to get it done, which feels really uncomfortable and really restrictive and pressured and not good. Difficulty focusing and easily distracted. Yes, and again, I think that often comes from the so many things to do, so our brain just doesn't know which one to do first, and we lose, when we get into anxiety, we lose that sense of clarity and the ability to take a step back and prioritize, to do all that smart goal setting and to know, right, what I need to do is this. It's just, it all has to be done right now, if not yesterday, which we know is unrealistic, but that's what it feels like when we're in this state of overwhelm. I guess that's pretty much the definition of overwhelm. And now I'd like to talk about a concept you may have heard of called the stress bucket. So we have our own inner stress bucket, and so it's that bucket shape, and at the top, stress is coming in because that's life. Life can be messy and life can be challenging and life can be a bit stressful. And particularly, I think we need to appreciate just how much stress. Yeah, absolutely, Trish, getting rid of those shoulds, coulds, woulds, and why didn't we's. Yes, the why didn't we's and the if onlys. If only I'd done that. If only this was this way. If only that was that way. Absolutely. My mum is a very cool lady. She's absolutely amazing. She's my role model. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm very, very, very blessed. So the stress is coming in all of the time. at the top of our bucket. And so, bucket being solid, the level is rising. I mean, you can just picture that. If you've got a bucket, you turn a tap on at the top, the level comes up. And if we don't find a way to lower the level in our bucket to drain out some of that stress, it's just going to get higher and higher and higher until it starts flowing over the sides at the top. A challenge often for us in the way that we live and with all of these pressures and expectations and so on is that we don't take that time. We don't look at ways to let the stress out. And maybe in a work setting, for example, we are in that situation where we can't ask for our needs to be met. And so there isn't the opportunity, again, to drain out some of that stress. But we still have to get through the day. So we often end up going, I'm not going to feel it. I'm going to turn my sensitivity right down because I can't cope. If I'm feeling everything that I'm feeling, it's just going to be too much. So to get through my day, I'm going to just cut it off, just not feel it, or at least turn it down, which gets us through the day. It's a coping strategy, but it can then mean that some little drip comes in at the top and we lose it. We become quite volatile and it's that idea of the straw that breaks the camel's back, because we haven't been aware that our bucket is brimming and it only takes that little drip until it starts going over the edge, starts to overflow, which is why it's so important to check in, just to have that dialogue. Body, how are you doing? How is the stress level today? Is there anything I can do to help you release some of that stress, lower that level in your bucket? And we'll be talking about some tools, tips and techniques that you can use to support you with that. So yes, the examples that I give on the presentation that I'm following here, my notes, is trying to juggle too many things at once. And that's so common, I think, particularly at the moment. We're just coming out of lockdown. There's so much to do. Everybody seems to be in catch up. It's spring. We're all trying to move forward. We're trying to get on with our lives, having had the last 2 crazy years. And we're still juggling all of that. It hasn't gone away completely. I know that we've had vaccine programs and restrictions have gone and people maybe are starting to feel a little bit safer, but it hasn't completely gone away. We were told so long, stay home, stay safe. Stay home to stay safe. Stay indoors, stay away from people. We are social beings. We need that, and yet we've been told it's not safe. And 2 years of that, we can't just wipe it out in one fell swoop, at least not without addressing it and acknowledging it. Another thing that can be really stressful is spending long hours in front of a computer screen. So if that's a scenario in which you work, both the posture that we often adopt in front of the computer screen, which again won't help with clenching of jaws, tightness of shoulders, headaches, numbers for me, anything that's got lots of numbers, my brain just goes, no thank you, and down. So my solution to that is I give my accounts to my accountant, and then I don't have to worry about them other than just they send them back to me. I pay their bill, I pay HMRC or whatever, and it just takes a load of stress off of me, because I know that that's just not something that I want to do. So some of the ways can be just, if that's uber stressful for me and I don't have to do it myself, give it to somebody who enjoys that kind of work. Sometimes I think in business particularly, we think, I'm only a startup, I don't have a lot of money, I can't afford to outsource things. But there's also the way of looking at it that, well, I pay somebody to do that at that much an hour, which means I get that much time back and I get this much for an hour. if you can break it down in that way. I know that some people work by packages, not by hours, but still you begin to see that it's not a good use maybe of my time and my money and my resources, and also the stress that it puts on me maybe takes up my energy and time in ways that I could use it so much more productively. Tammy, hi. Don't worry about being late to the party. It's fine. It's just great to have you here, and you can always go back and watch from the beginning if you'd like to, because it'll be here in the group. But just noticing the time, so I'm going to move on. But I wanted also to look at how do we open our tap. And as I was saying earlier, it's a very individual thing. So just have a think about what supports you when you're feeling stressed, what helps you to feel less stressed, maybe completely, that's wonderful, I can breathe again, or even just a little bit, okay, I can carry on now. For me, just to give you some examples, it would be things like getting outdoors, just to be in the space of outdoors and the space of blue sky and natural light and movement, particularly if you are somebody who tends to work indoors in front of a computer screen. Getting outdoors and being able just to walk about and move freely is, it's just like a change is as good as a rest. But it also, being in nature, nature sounds and the colours of nature and the seasons, they've been proven to be so good for our well-being. And obviously natural light helps to reset your circadian rhythm, helps you to get a better night's sleep, does so much for our well-being. For me also, I love to spend time with animals. I find them such calming, non-judgmental company. And if you're somebody like me who, when they get stressed, starts to feel anxious and starts to have a huge inner critic, then finding something like that, a situation, a place, people maybe. I know people whose maybe partners or friends are that rock for them, are that space where there is no pressure, there's no expectation, there's no sense of judgment, because that really can help to take off a lot of that stress. So yeah, time for myself as well is a big one. And I think for the members of this group, the Wild Wisdom Wellbeing group, I think a lot of you are probably like me, you're quite empathic. And if that's the case, you will be picking up all of the stress and you just want some time out, some space and time on your own. That's okay. And I think it's important, really important, to honour that, because sometimes people can say, oh, you're such a loner, or you're unsociable. But I think it's not. It's how we recharge our batteries, how we get grounded again, how we feel centered again, ready to go on to the next thing, ready to be social if that's what you choose to do. Tammy, on Monday you're going out for lunch with your best friend. Perfect, wonderful. Yeah, time to be in good company. So I think there is a time, obviously a time and a space for socializing, and how that can be so stress relieving as well. But not only are we very individual in what we find stressful, what we find relieves our stress, it also depends on the situation. So it varies by person, it varies by time, varies by where you are in your life, and it varies by situation. So in some cases you might want to spend time with a friend, some cases you might want to be outdoors, some cases you might want to be with an animal if you're like me. So paying attention to what suits you and when is very important, and it just gives you that range to choose from. When you start to practice this, you start to know that generally supports me in this situation and that supports me in that situation. Or if you find that used to support me in this situation but it doesn't anymore, but I have all of these other tools to experiment, play with, Try out. Maybe they'll be the right thing for that situation now. And if they're not, then maybe I can combine them, or I can adopt and adapt them. So just giving yourself more options, more resources to play with. But why is this so important? Why is it important to get out of stress and fight or flight and into relaxation, rest and repair? And to I think I'll move on a little bit, because as I said, I do tend to get passionate about these things and I talk a lot about them. But basically, it's like there's a slide within the presentation that's looking at what does stress and repair, what does fight or flight look like in your body, what does it do to your body, and what does rest and repair do in your body. And you'll notice there that in rest and repair, that's where our digestive system can work properly. It doesn't in fight or flight. So if our digestive system isn't working properly, we're not absorbing the nutrients that we need just for basic maintenance, just for our bodies doing the day-to-day stuff, let alone if we've been ill, if we've been run down, if we've had an operation and we're needing to recover. So being in rest and repair allows for that, as it says, rest and repair, allows our bodies to heal. And that's where we sleep better. And I'm just listening to an audiobook now of Why Do We Sleep? It's a great book. I highly recommend it. It really gives you an insight into the benefits of sleep, but also what happens when we don't sleep well and why it's so important. But now I'd like to talk you through a quick body scan, because I think it's a great foundation for the tools I'm then going to go on and share with you. And it supports that idea of the body vocabulary, because if you can do a body scan, and it doesn't have to be a full one, but just checking in with yourself on a regular basis, and maybe you want to do it more often at the beginning to build up that dialogue, that vocabulary, that understanding of each other, working together, and then maybe you won't need to do it in as much depth as often as you go along, and you start, I can just click in and I know, right, I can move on now because I've got that familiarity. But just, as I say, to tune in, to get to know what your body, what messages your body sends you and what they mean for you as an individual, this body scan is really effective. And you can do it standing, sitting, whatever is most comfortable for you. I tend to close my eyes because it helps me to really focus inward. But again, it's entirely up to you. But I'm just going to talk you through a quick scan now, and I'll share one in the group as well that you can have as a standalone. But just bring your attention now to the top of your head and to your scalp. Just notice. It's not about saying it's to this or it's to that, or this shouldn't be like that, or this is right or this is wrong, this is good or this is bad. It just is. All we're doing is noticing just how it feels. Just, is there any tension? Does it maybe feel a little bit tight? And then going down your forehead, your eye sockets, your nose, cheeks, checking in with that jaw, and then down your neck, throat, and into your shoulders, any tension in that area where your shoulder's sitting today. And on down into your arms, right the way down to your hands. Our hands do so much for us. Just checking in with how they're feeling today. And then through the whole of the trunk of your body, chest, lungs, how How's your breathing? Is there any restriction there? Down into your stomach and all of your digestive and other inner organs. How are they feeling today? And down into your hips. And if you're sitting, notice your seat bones. Do they feel evenly balanced? Any discomfort there? Any tightness or tension? And again, just noticing. And then on down into your legs, through your thighs, knees, calves, into your ankles and your feet. And noticing your feet on the floor, feeling the surface beneath them. If you're standing, this is the place then to feel, is the weight evenly balanced between left and right foot? Just feeling into your feet. Again, they do so much for us, carrying us around all day. So just noticing how they feel. And then in your own time, either open your eyes, or if they're already open, just bringing your attention back to this session. So that's just a great way to pick up on anything that's going on in your body, anything that maybe it's been trying to get your attention, of just that little niggle here or that little niggle there. And you can do things, which I'll come on to a little bit later, that just help you to get a bit more depth of understanding of what that might be trying to tell you. And I was going to ask you, but maybe for time reasons we won't go into this in great depth, but just to think about how your body tells you that you're feeling stress. I touched on this a few minutes ago, but some of the ways that I run, this is taken from a workshop that I run, and some of the things that people have said to me in the past are that when they're feeling stressed, they feel pain in their body, there's a tightness, their mood is heavy and low, and maybe they feel alone, isolated, they feel small, that sense of being less than or restricted in some way, and exhausted and hopeless that we've mentioned before. In contrast, I then ask them, what does it feel like? How does your body let you know when it feels good? When it's in flow, in the zone, things are coming together and working well. And the responses I've got there are a sense of happiness and lightness, of just feeling relaxed and chilled, uplifted, connected, expansive, and that things are possibility, where before there were problems and challenges and difficulties, now there are possibilities and challenges and excitement. So these are the sorts of vocabulary messages that I'm talking about that you get from your body, and how you can start to notice. And the earlier you notice, the less effort it takes to get back to these feelings of being in flow. But the earlier you notice the stress is building from, okay, that's how my body tells me I'm in stress. The earlier you notice that and start to address it, let something out of your stress bucket, reduce the level, then you can, right, I'm starting to feel flow. I need to do more of that, and I'll get further along into feeling even better. So that's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm referring to the dialogue that this self-care, deeper self-care, really helps you to develop. Zoom in lockdown, yes, Zoom was very stressful, you're right, Andrea, and very exhausting. We got zoomed out, didn't we? Yeah, and how you can pick up people's negativity. But again, that's like the inner dialogue I was talking about, watching what we say to ourselves, watching the dialogue environment that's going on around us, and spending as little time in the negativity that we possibly can. And outdoors in nature, it gets you out of that, isn't it? Because animals aren't like that, and nature isn't like that. It doesn't have all of that negativity. So now I'm going to look at some self-care tools that I'd like to share with you. And as I was sort of touching on before, feel into them. Feel which ones feel right for you and when. Because some of them may feel right at some times, some of them might not feel right just now, but that's not to dismiss them, because you might want to revisit them. They might be supportive in the future. And also to note which things help you in which situations. But again, being open to revisiting that, because it can change over time. And the first one that I'd like to look at is the basic thing. What do we all need to do all of the time? Breathe. But as I was hinting at in the body scan, sometimes our breathing is restricted because we can hold tension in our diaphragm, which means then that our breath isn't as deep and as maybe slow and as gentle and relaxed as it could be. And the downside of that is that it then sends a feedback loop to our body: something's wrong. It therefore feeds feelings of needing to breathe into a paper bag, sort of hyperventilation. That sense of panic, and where you start off maybe feeling a little bit of a flutter and can progress into a full-blown panic attack. So if you notice that happening, what you can do is just place your hand on your chest and breathe what's known as a heart breath. So just breathe as if the breath is coming in and out of your heart space. And just paying attention also to breathing from your belly, from your diaphragm. So noticing how the breath, doing it mindfully basically, because the mindfulness helps as well. Being mindful of the breath coming in through your nostrils, into wonderful exchange, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out. That nurturing of our bodies that we do when we breathe. And just being conscious of breathing slowly, gently and deeply. Not too much, because you can then make yourself lightheaded, but just to a level that's comfortable. So you can either do that just with your hand on your chest, heart breathing, or something using what you have with you all of the time is using your hand in a way that I'll show you now. But that is a great way as well to help center you, because if you are in that situation where your thoughts are scattered and you just can't, you're so distracted and you're finding it really hard to focus, a way to help with that is to do this hand breathing. So you just start with whichever hand, with your dominant hand then is going to be moving, and as you go up, breathe in, go down, breathe out. Breathe in as you go up, breathe down as you go out. And just carry on doing that across all of the fingers. And then hopefully by the end of it, by the time you've gone around your whole hand, you're starting to feel better. And you can do that as many times as you like. But it really, because you have the sensation of your finger moving along the outline of your hand. You have the consciousness, the mindfulness of your breathing while you're doing that. It really does bring you back from all of that scattered thought into being much more centered, grounded, focused, which then brings back that clarity of mind, which can help with, okay, now I'm going to start to prioritize and not feel so scattered and make choices that serve me around what do I do first, and create the plan going forward from there, so that you're not feeling overwhelmed, you're not feeling so just, I don't know where to start and what to do, it's all too big, it's all too much. Just doing that exercise can really help. The next thing that I want to show you again just uses the hand. And it's great when we can use our own body, because it's part of the being aware of our body and the messages that it's sending us. It's part of that, I'm here body, I'm listening, I'm honouring what you're telling me, I'm supporting you, I'm nurturing you. And that all is part of that wonderful loop that then starts to be so self-supportive. This next exercise I'm going to show you comes from Jin Shin Jitsu, which is a martial art form. And I'll send you the diagram for this. There are different meanings behind each finger, and you can just hold the fingers to give yourself these different sort of levels of support, different types of support, depending on the need in the moment. But a great one just to start with is holding your index finger and middle finger. And again, just breathing while you do that. And just breathing mindfully, gently, as deeply as is comfortable, and allowing that to again center you and to send that feedback loop to the body. I'm okay. I'm safe. All is well. In this moment, right here and right now, I am safe and all is well. And by all means, add a mantra like that as well while you breathe, just to reassure, nurture, take care of yourself as you breathe. And in relation to that, something very similar, because this is using energy lines, qi lines, as with traditional Chinese medicine, but no needles, just like acupuncture, as I say, but with no needles. Another way to use those lines is through tapping, emotional freedom technique, EFT, you might have heard of it before. And again, in the slides that I'm going to share, there is a diagram that gives you a couple of the basic points. But a great one, well, great couple that you can use if you're feeling just those anxious feelings maybe start to rise, is the thymus. So just on your breastbone, you can tap or massage. And another great one is under your collarbone. A little bit too well dressed for that one, to show you that one clearly for you to see, and the scarf's not helping either. But as I say, there's a diagram in the slides that I'll send out after the masterclass is finished. But tapping, it supports the amygdala, which is kind of like the threat radar, and helps to tone it down, say, we're okay actually, we got this, in this moment, right here, right now, I'm safe. Another one is mindfulness, and I like to do a mindfulness exercise with satsuma, you know, a mandarin, tangerine, whatever you want to call them, whichever one you like. That, like at Christmas, I love the smell of them. But I think for them, they give you all. All of your senses are stimulated. So you've got the bright colour, you've got the texture of the skin, you've got the smell when you start to break the peel and open the orange. Then you've got the taste and the hopefully nice, sharp, bitter, sweet tanginess. Did I say smell? So all of the senses are stimulated, and therefore it really supports being mindful while you enjoy the fruit. And not quite lastly, Another one, as I was saying, for me is to get outdoors into nature. A great tool on so many levels to support our well-being. As I said earlier, fresh air, movement, natural light, natural sounds, and just the energy of being around nature, and like they say, hugging a tree. And I've got a great quote from Phyllis Curott, who says, "When we look to nature, it's constantly revealing all sorts of wisdom that bring us back to the lost parts of ourselves. Those parts maybe that we felt maybe ashamed of, maybe that other people we think don't like, so we hide them away. Whatever it might be, they are valuable parts of us as unique individuals. So bringing them back in, celebrating them, enjoying them, wondering at them, that's a lot of the gift that nature gives us." I am aware that it's now 4 o'clock and the hour has come to an end, and I haven't quite finished. I'm sorry, I've spoken for a long time, so if you need to go, thank you so much for being with me. I will carry on, and if you just need to come back another time to finish off the session, then thank you so much for being here with me, and I hope that you found what we've covered so far useful, and that you will come back and finish off watching the rest of the tips. I've got another couple to share, because these ones are going to take you that little bit step further and really help to enrich and deepen your self-care practice. And the first of those is journaling. I talked before about the body scan, and when you find things, you notice things in the scan, maybe there's a bit of tension, a bit of tightness, or I was saying about if you've got jaw tightness, what is your jaw holding for you? So with journaling, you can do something known as somatic journaling, where you tune into that body part, say your jaw, or if it's your shoulder or your hip, and you say, what are you holding for me today? And to be aware that when our bodies are doing something, whether it's a behavior or holding tension or there's pain, it's honoring that the body is doing that it's doing it for us. It's holding something until we're ready to address it. So thanking it for doing what it needs to do to support us. It's taking care of us. Even our ego and all of these things that come in and they self-sabotage us, they're just trying to keep us safe. So thank you. I'm ready, I'm listening. What do you want to share with me? What are you trying to show me, indicate to me, send a message to me, tell me that you need support with? And with somatic journaling, when you ask that question, you then allow free flow writing. What comes up? And it's how then to switch off, try and switch off, that you just let it come. And sometimes the way to do that is just to start. I don't know what to write. I don't know what this is doing. I'm not sure I believe in it. Get all of that out. Put it all down on the paper as well, because that can clear that out of the way to allow the rest to flow. There are times I know when I've sat down thinking, oh, I'm going to write 2 lines if I'm lucky today, and I end up 3 pages later looking back and think, wow, where did all that come from? But it can give you great insight and then help you to understand what the message is from the body, what the need is behind that message, what the emotion is within it, and how then to go on and address that need, provide for that need, nurture and nourish yourself, because you now have that understanding. You now know what your body's asking for. But also sometimes, if an answer doesn't come, trusting that the body knows. And if you are there just saying, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm not understanding yet, help me to understand, and help me just to address the need in some way, somehow let me know, and pay attention to what goes on around you. given me the insight that I needed. So just when you put it out to the universe, trust, it will come. It really will. So journaling, just as it says in my notes, it gives you a sense of objectivity and perspective that can be missing otherwise. It helps you to see patterns, to make connections. You can then begin to see, oh, this behavior happens every time that happens, or I feel this way every time that happens. Or you can use it as well for food diaries and things. Every time I eat that food, that happens. Or I have this craving and I want to eat that food after this has happened. It helps us to explore our thoughts, our self-talk. If you notice your self-talk is saying something to you again and again and it feels horrible, whose voice is that? Where does that come from? Because if it feels uncomfortable, it won't be coming from your higher self. It can help us to explore our emotions and those deep questions maybe that keep us up at night. Where am I going with my life? What's it for? What's my purpose? What am I here to do? How do I do that? How do I take the next step? Where should I go next? All of those questions can be really great to explore in a journal. And it also is a record then of how you've changed and grown and developed and moved forward over time. Another great one, which a lovely friend of mine calls power truths, you might know as affirmations. And they are about creating a statement which is positive, so without the don'ts and the can'ts and the have tos. It's a statement in the affirmative. It's affirming words, so things like I am enough. They use the present tense. You need to make sure that it's something you really can believe in and feel. And at the beginning, I am enough might be a step too far. So how do you break that down? What is something that you can believe? Actually, I'm pretty good at this. Okay, I'm good at that. That's where I'm going to start. I'm going to take that step, and then when I'm really feeling into, I'm actually amazing at that, then I can add something else and something else. So they evolve over time. They are dynamic. If you can bring in gratitude, it makes it even better. So you might think of something, it'll be great when. Saying it as, I am so grateful that this is already the case. And that might be a challenge if you can't quite believe that yet. But sometimes you can just know it in your higher self. I'm grateful that my higher self is this. I'm grateful that my soul self is already there and I'm on my way towards that. So there are lots of ways that you can play with these things and really fit them to yourself. Bring in as many senses as you can when you're visioning and imagining, because like with the mindfulness, with the orange, it really helps to make it real. And our brain doesn't know the difference. So what you think of in your head, if you can feel it as real with gratitude and with all of your senses involved, the brain doesn't know the difference between that and reality. So this is why it's such a great exercise, and many athletes and top businessmen and things use this, because it does make it so real. And then in doing that, it helps you to see all the opportunities that match with that, so that it becomes real. This is how manifesting and The Secret actually work. It's all of these steps to making your power truth, because it does become a very powerful and empowering truth. So as I say, I'm sharing the slides, and that's the steps towards creating these are all listed there. And then lastly, it's being very aware and conscious of our self-talk. And that comes back to the inner critic and the way that we maybe say the shoulds and the coulds, shoulds and the have-tos and the can'ts and the don'ts. And a lot of shaming can go on, criticism, shaming of ourselves within our self-talk. And our words are so creative. So if we're saying things like, I was rubbish at that, I made such a mess of that, why on earth did I do that? And as I think it was Trish said earlier, why didn't I, or how could I have done that way? Something like that. Sorry, Trish, I can't quite remember exactly your words. But those things, those ways in which we beat ourselves up, they bring on those feelings. You can just feel into that smallness, restriction, less than lack feeling, which is part of the stress body talk that I mentioned earlier. When we feel those feelings in response to the inner voice, it's the time to do the journaling. Where does that voice come from? That is not my voice. That is not my truth. If it was my truth, it wouldn't be bothering me. It's the fact, Abraham Hicks talks about when we feel that sense of discomfort, it's because the thought we're having, the belief that we're living in, is not matching that of our soul self, our higher self. So how can we start to feel better? What thought, what belief would help me to feel better? Because the closer and closer I can get to that, the more and more I'm coming into alignment with my soul self. The more and more I'm starting to think about myself as my soul self does, to know myself as my soul self does. So just looking for that little step. It doesn't have to be a big step. We don't have to make that leap from I'm rubbish to I'm good enough. It's often a step too far to do all in one go. But we can do, well, how would I feel just a little bit better? How would that feeling lift just a little bit? And then once I've lifted it a little bit, I can lift it a little bit more and a little bit more. And each step we take along the way and we see this is working. I'm feeling a bit better. I'm feeling uplifted. I'm feeling lighter. I feel like I've got space to breathe again. The more we're going to want to do, and the further and further we can go. I was having a chat with somebody earlier and talking about if we are so fixated on the end goal rather than enjoying the journey, we might just get to that end goal. We might not even make it that far. But if we're enjoying the journey, we'll probably go a hell of a lot further than the end goal, because the end goal that we had originally is from that limited position. If you think, if you're in the foothills, I've got friends who are leaving on Tuesday to go and walk to Everest Base Camp. How awesome is that? But if you were in the foothills and you look to the first, what looks like a summit, and you think, I'm going to get to there, you're not going to get as far as if you go, I'm going to really enjoy this. Oh, I've got to the top of this little bit that I thought was the summit. Oh, I'm not very far, and I'm actually enjoying this, so I've got plenty of energy left. I'm going to go further. And then, I'm at the top of the next bit, and it's still not the top. I'm still enjoying this. I'm going to go further. You can just see how it begins to build and how your concept of where you could get to just grows and kind of explodes exponentially. So that, I think, is what paying attention to your self-talk, exploring your self-talk, understanding your self-talk, having compassion for yourself in all of what you're experiencing, and just being light with this, playing with it. It's not something serious. Abraham Hicks, can't quite remember, but says something like, we all make too much of all of this. We take ourselves so seriously. We're taught to, we're encouraged to. Everything around us is so serious. In business and on the news and in the newspapers and online, serious everywhere. We need to get back to play and lightness and being able to enjoy. So thank you so much. If you've stayed with me to the end, I deeply appreciate that. This has just been a taster of what I share and what it's like to work with me. And when you look at the slides, you'll see that I've got some further information there that lets you know a little bit more about working with me, in that you can contact me, we can have a one-to-one, have a chat if you're interested in knowing a little bit more. There are lots of different ways. I'm putting together kind of entry level, dip your toe in, find out a little bit more about what it's like to work with me, and start to make the first small steps that maybe take you towards the top of that first foothill, and you think, ooh, this is really exciting, I'm loving this, I'm really enjoying this journey, I'm building my self-care toolkit, I'm deepening and enhancing my practice. So if you'd like to know more, just get in touch. We can have, as I say, a Zoom chat, a virtual coffee, and I'm really excited to tell you more about all of that. And also there'll be other social media. Obviously, if you're in this group, you know about that, but I've got some other social media as well. I love imagery, as you might have noticed, so I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn as well, and I'd love to connect with you there too. Thank you, Andrea, thank you, Yvonne, thank you all so much. I'm going to go back and read all the comments as well, because I know that I've missed a few. And thank you again for being here. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for all your interaction. It has meant so much to me. And I wish you a wonderful day and a wonderful bank holiday weekend. It's due to be pretty good weather, I think. So maybe get outdoors and enjoy. Thank you, and bye for now.